Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conservatish episode 241. My name is Peter Edgar Feliciano. Wherever you're listening, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, rate, review, or you're racist, and especially double racist, because the both of us, me and Lou, together create one Latinx person. So if you don't support us, you're double racist. And you can find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. And on TikTok, I did squeeze back in there, Peter.Feliciano. It's the fourth time I've gotten kicked off, but I'm going to try it again. We'll see. Yeah, I appreciate y'all watching us. Ladies and gentlemen, at the Lou Perez is back. Yay.
Thank you. Yeah, my second time, man. Has it been like 2 years?
Wow. It's been a while. I know I was using Zoom back then. Sorry, everybody, if I look super red for some reason. Yeah, I know I was using Zoom back then. I know it was obviously pandemic times. I think you may have just had maybe your first kid. And now you have doubles, which is very nice. You just came out with a book. Please tell people where they can find you and how they can support you, please.
Yeah. So my book is That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore.
What?
On the death and rebirth of comedy. It's legit. There's pages. Yeah. And that is available. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on Amazon. I think Amazon's probably the place to go if you really want to support me. Leave a review. Those apparently help the algorithm.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm a lazy bastard. So I listen to audiobooks, but as soon as I saw that you had a book out, I was like, damn, hell yeah, let's do this. And you did it in Audible. Thank you so much for helping those of us who are lazy. I really appreciate that, Lou. But I really liked your book. I really liked your book. And I don't know, I'm sure you've had a lot of people, tell you that or whatever, and who the fuck am I? But I really appreciated your prose, your humor, the fact that everybody gets a bullet. And I'll just say this, and then you can talk about your book and your process and whatever. But I appreciate, I was doing a little trolling today. I don't know if anyone else has been doing a little trolling, but it's fun sometimes. And anytime you can't really, I don't know how Trump did it. I think you need some sociopathy or psychopathy or something. But I don't know if I can effectively troll if I'm not allowing the trolling to happen to me or to my sacred side. And so I appreciate it when somebody is like a plague on all your houses. Do you know what I mean? South Park was like that. Frank Zappa was like that. Nobody, he did songs about, making fun of God, and he also made fun of hippies, and he made fun of everybody. Everybody gets made fun of. Everybody gets talked about. And, and so I appreciated that stance. I appreciated your humor and your stories in it. So yeah, just wanted to say that at the jump, sir.
Well, thank you for putting me with South Park, Frank Zappa, and God. That's
when did I say God? I don't remember saying God.
Well, Frank made fun of God.
That's true.
Well, for one, the thing about being a comedian is, you can kind of, you can invite friends out to come see you live. And, for the most part, it's going to be a good time. You understand if they don't have the time, but when they come out, they're going to see a good show. They're going to have drinks. You're going to hang out afterwards. You're asking them to kind of party, Yeah. When you write a book and you ask your friends to read your book, you're asking a lot of them. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to read it in the first place. And yeah, man, I'm really humbled that you enjoyed it, and I'm still sort of at the stage. The book's been out a couple of months, where when I'm getting positive feedback, it's a reminder that I wrote it and it's out there in the world, and it's actually serving a purpose, which in my which is what I wanted to do, which was entertain and give some people a little bit of light in what might be what might be the darkness. So.
Right. What was your process besides, obviously you're talking about like why you wanted to do it or what you wanted to do, but you have a long history doing sketch comedy. You did We the Internet TV and all that stuff, or We the Internet TV, We the Internet. But how long ago did you get the idea that you were like, I think I want to do a book?
Well, the idea came after over my shoulder. For those of you who are looking over my left shoulder, there's a newspaper clipping, and it's from the Wall Street Journal. So at the end of 2020, I had an article in the Wall Street Journal called "How I Became a quote far right radical," and that was written in response to an academic paper that came out titled "The Growth of Right Wing Echo Chambers" on YouTube,
Mm.
which is amazing. The idea that there are academics like at some really big universities who are studying this shit. It's
Right.
sort of like there's a Goodwill Hunting dude
Mhm.
who's, the janitor's popping in to go, turn on YouTube and see what the algorithm tells him. And so in that paper, to keep it short, We the Internet TV was labeled far right, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But I was in it was in good company, so it was who was also far right: Joe Rogan, Sam Harris, Brett Weinstein, um, and that so it's like all these very different people who were definitely not far right were being labeled far right.
Right.
And a friend of mine said, you should do a response, you should write something or do a video. And from that came the opportunity to write a response that appeared in the Wall Street Journal. And I took that article, and I was friends with a publisher on Facebook, and we never hung out or anything. We would just like each other's comment, like each other's posts. And I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if I sent him this article and he was like, you should write a book? And then that's exactly what happened.
Nice. Very cool.
So it was one of those examples of my wife is a very positive person, and she's like putting something out into the universe, and kind of getting something back. And yeah, so I had a very different, I think, uh, journey to getting to writing a book, to getting the opportunity to write a book. So
Very cool. Well, I appreciated it. And I knew it was going to be funny, but I also, um, what I appreciate too is that, like, I'm a musician, I'm a creator, I'm a podcaster, blah, blah, blah. And I sometimes have a hard time. I don't know if you had this too, but when I think I'm going to create something really important, it ruins it. It ruins it. The expectations get high in my head. I start thinking, oh, what if they scrutinize this word? And did you have that process when you were starting to write it? Did you,
yeah, so when I had the chance to write the book, I spoke with my publisher, and I was like, yeah, what would you like to see from me? And he said, write the book you want to write, which is incredible to have that freedom.
right,
But then also it's scary as fuck, because it's
right,
like, what do you mean write the book I want to write? I don't
right,
know what book I want to write.
right.
So what I sort of found was, at the beginning, I didn't think I had enough like to write about.
Mhm.
And I was putting a lot of sort of these blocks in the way. It was sort of uh, rather than letting stuff flow, I was like kind of going back and going over each sentence, and then I start marking days on the calendar, and I'm like, there's no way I'm ever going to finish this thing. So uh, a bit of advice, what I would give to anybody who is embarking on writing something of considerable size, at some point, is to put out what I call a vomit draft, which is you basically take all the notes you have and your outlines and stuff, and you throw it together, and then you just start from page one, and you just write, and you just write, and you just write. And every day you stop at a particular time, you pick up the next morning, and then at the end of that, you have like a few hundred pages of stuff, and it's a vomit draft. It's gonna suck,
Right.
but then you've gotten something out that you haven't allowed yourself to sort of like uh, start editing yourself before you're even ready. So that's what I did, and that was such an important part of it. Is just get it out, get it out, get it out.
Right. Can you, well, I do, we could talk more about it later, but the thing I really wanted to talk to you about, because my favorite book of all time, although that joke is not funny anymore, is very good. My favorite joke of all time or favorite book is John Cleese's autobiography. So anyway,
Oh,
And
cool.
I've been a Monty Python fan since I was, in my teens. I watched Mr. Show more times than I can count. I used to watch Upright Citizens Brigade for the short time it was on Comedy Central, I think it was. I grew up a sketch comedy fan. And the last few years, I haven't necessarily bothered. Like, I still can't really follow John Cleese on Twitter. I love him to death. I appreciate that he's very anti-woke, but every time he's just like, Trump, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, all right, dude, just, and I'm not saying, shut up and dribble, but I am saying, some things I can take in and some things I appreciate and some things I don't. What really bothers me is that sketch comedy people who were rebels, these are not motherfuckers, who did milk toast comedy. These were, I mean, except for the only one I know for sure, the only ones I know who are anti-woke, regardless of their political stance, are John Cleese and Scott Thompson, from what I can tell. Scott Thompson has talked to you, did a great show with Your Mom's House a couple of years ago, where he railed on white liberals and on woke people and blah blah. And I'm sure whatever, but I mean, let's be real. Scott Thompson wore blackface in the 80s and has not apologized. Thank God. Like these are groups of people who are rebel comics. And yet the people who are murdering comedy now, I'm not saying that John Cleese and Scott Thompson and Dave Foley and Bob Odenkirk need to vote Republican, but why aren't they connecting the dots between, and I feel like this is happening in a lot of comedy, here's who's killing comedy, let me stop giving them power and money. Like as an example, apparently last week, David Cross did a fundraiser for Charlie Christ for Florida,
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's just like
Wow.
David Cross, of all people, Netflix removed an episode with Bob and David 2 years ago for David Cross wearing blackface, even though Keegan Michael Key was in the skit with him. You know what I mean? Like he should know, of all people, woke is murdering comedy, but yet he was still they're not connecting, and it bothers me. What are your, I mean, you talked a little bit about it in the book, but like, I'm not asking you to shit on, on David Cross necessarily, but like, I just feel like it's frustrating to me because I'm such a sketch comedy fan, because I have watched, and not just Mr. Show. I know some of the commentary tracks verbatim. Okay. This is how much I have immersed myself in. I'm a dork, but like, I feel like it's still not connecting the dots. They're still giving money and power to the beast that is murdering comedy. And it upsets me.
Well, I feel like the disconnect is, it's kind of hard. It's hard to watch because, like, take someone like David Cross, who years ago he opened up one of his specials by saying, "I hate N-word," right? Plural. And then moved on to a new joke, right? So it wasn't even like, he did an impression of a crack baby. I remember he did, really just, out,
right.
Out there stuff,
Right.
offensive, quite a few people might be offensive. There was a time when Sarah Silverman offended, I guess, I don't know if it's like some Asian American coalition because of a joke that she had, where she used the word chink in it. And notice how I'm okay using that word, but the N word, I'm a little bit more.
I say nigger all the time.
I know you do. You're like a pregnant woman. You're saying it for two right
exactly.
Now. You'll be saying it every time it's in my head.
Exactly.
So it is wild to see comedians who used to be, dangerous and would try, stuff like that, who have come around considerably, to this other side of it. I mean, Scott Thompson is, somebody that I look up to, and he's the stuff that he did, like with the Kids in the Hall, in particular with Buddy Cole. I mean, that character is just unbelievable. And some of the sketches that the Kids in the Hall did were like, what, 30 or 40 years ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And no, so I am so happy that, comics like Scott is still out there, John Cleese as well. And I've had the honor of meeting both of them,
Are
and
you
talking shop.
serious?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
Um, yeah, I got to meet John Cleese in Las Vegas at Freedom Fest. So
Nice.
his daughter Camilla we were on a show together, and
Mm.
she's great too. She's really cool, and yeah, it's something I don't know what happens where that kind of transformation from a very dangerous comedian to like a woke scold. Like I don't know where that happens. Um,
Well, I mean, to be fair, David Cross was very liberal for a long time. I
mhm.
remember him doing an open letter to what was it? An open letter to
Oh, Larry the Cable Guy.
Larry the Cable Guy, right? He hated Bush, and I'm not saying
Yep.
that Bush wasn't a piece of shit. I'm saying, can't you see at some point that the definition of liberal in 2005 might be a little different than it is now?
Mhm.
And to that end, what wokeness is doing to something that he loves, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's something that I say in the book is, I have no idea how I would respond to having just an incredible, soapbox and audience or platform where I could reach millions and millions of people and actually like affect the lives of millions of people. I have no idea what that would do to my ego, what that would do to my self-importance, what that would do to anything that I create, like you were saying, before about thinking like, oh, this is gonna change the world or something like
Yeah.
that. So maybe that stuff kind of feeds into it. um, I don't know, and I think there are quite a few people who want to be a lot more important than they are, or at least don't see the importance in what they're doing. Like I think, uh, one of the things that I wonder is like during the Bush administration, the previous GW, if the Daily Show was really great, or if I just agreed with them. Like were they amazing, like cutting edge, or did I just agree with them because I was also against the Bush administration?
Right.
Now, I think the show as a whole, yes, because you had Steve Carell and Steve Colbert, that were just yeah, Stephen Colbert. Um, that was pretty it was amazing, to have all those artists together. Um, so I don't know. I wonder if I don't know why I brought that up. I think maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
maybe it's also with a mix too of getting older too. Like,
That's a good way to put it.
yeah, because like I think a lot of people, like when I think back to, I didn't watch it, but I watched the documentary on it, Dana Carvey show. And did you ever watch that documentary, or did you watch the show?
I did, and I know you're talking, and I remember what I was going to say real quick,
Go.
real quick. So and I think it is an element of getting older, and wanting to be more important, and forgetting about how important or how amazing your job is as a comedian. That you know, just to be able to make people laugh, to create new and interesting things that that are going to fill people with joy or make them think, and all that. Sort of like for me at this point in my life, like, damn, that's kind of enough. Like I really like that. Then I guess you have people where they get a little older, they start looking at the world and they're like, hey, maybe I could actually affect real change in it. And in order to do that, I'm gonna have to, be a little cringy, I guess.
Yeah. You either live long enough to be, or you die a hero or something.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. And I also think there's the getting older part is like, I mean, what was it? Dana Carvey and Stephen Colbert and Steve Carell did some episode where like dogs are suckling from fake teats on
On
on Dana Carvey, you know what I
Who's
mean?
playing Bill Clinton?
Who was playing Bill Clinton.
Wait,
Now I'm not
that's how they opened the
right.
Dana Carvey show. That's the first episode, and that's the
And
first sketch.
And I'm not saying, because they were probably what, 25, 26 when they did that. I'm not saying that somebody at 40, 45 should be still making teats sketches. But what I am saying is that the I feel, could be wrong, and I hope I don't, whatever, but I feel like the animus underneath that is, let me poke at what's the sacred cow here. And what's causing the most damage? What's causing the most disconnect? What's causing them? And not from a place of like, I'm speaking truth to power, but that inherently, I believe, is the most fun target of humor, is when something is precious and when something is, you're not supposed to say it, and when something is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know why, and maybe it's that too, that a lot of people have that, not just, oh, I want to make a difference, but also they have people, at parties in Los Angeles and at parties in San Francisco and at parties grabbing their elbow. Hey, you know what? I'd like you to meet this token Black person that I just met, at this activist thing, and they're going to tell you about, about Ghana. And then the Ghana person cries the right amount of tears, and then the person, Dana Carvey, feels like, oh, I have an importance to sell my soul and be cringe from now on because Ghana lady was shown to me. And I know,
I gotta say, Ghana Lady was definitely his weakest special. Like, big fan of Dana Carvey, but man, yeah, that Ghana Lady special.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is, you do wonder, the psychology that goes into that, and I wonder how much of it too just comes from a place of I don't know, legitimately thinking that the way that you see the world is the correct way that the world is, um, and believing in believing in yourself so much that you have the answers. And I don't know. I'm not there yet. Maybe I'll be I'll be a douchebag in like a couple of weeks or something. In the
Right,
new
it's that-
year, that's my my New Year's resolution.
right. Patrice O'Neill used to talk about, I don't mean to mention him every show. I don't know what it is, everybody. It is what it is. So stop yelling at me. Amplify Black voices. But Patrice O'Neill talked about, like, where's the disconnect? What's the golden handcuffs? He had Ludacris on. He was on a radio show, Opie and Anthony, and Ludacris comes on, and Ludacris had just been blasted and lost his Pepsi deal because of Bill O'Reilly.
Why? What did he do? What happened?
I don't know. This was like 06. I don't know.
Ludacris?
Ludacris lost his Pepsi deal or something because of Bill O'Reilly pressuring blah, blah, blah. And so, Ludacris is on that show, and people are asking him, and Patrice is asking him, black guy to black guy in a way, like, what happened? Where do, what, blah, blah, blah. And Ludacris just goes, like, pretty much stonewalls everybody. It's just like, hey man, I don't want to talk about it, blah, blah, blah. And it's not from a place of, I don't want to talk about it. It's coming from this weird energy. You can hear it of like, hey man, like, I'm trying to protect my jobs that I have, because now I'm a movie guy and now I'm a this. And he's like, where is the knock on the door? The old Godfather knock on the door. Hey, you owe, you know what I mean? Like, it's, I want you to sew up my son type of shit. Like, where does that come? Just tell me. Patrice was like, tell me so that I know how to look out for it, so that I don't sell my, I mean, like, I don't know.
Yo, man, they assassinated him with diabetes, man. So that's how they got rid of Patrice.
Fucking bastards.
Yeah. You talk about him. You talk about him every show. I mean,
he just comes up. I don't know what it is. Almost every show.
I mean, what Elephant in the Room is, I mean, just one of the greatest hours of stand up just ever. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I could see why. But it's funny. Like, we're talking about comedy, and something I get into in the book is just sort of, it's been so politicized. There's this intellectualization of comedy, that's happened, and a importance that's been put upon comedy and the figures doing comedy. Like, where whether it's speaking truth to power, or people looking to them as truth tellers, and as opposed to just having conversations about, my God, did you see that? Did you see that bit where where Patrice O'Neill talks about Radiohead's "Creep" on the radio, and like, have you seen that and just how funny that is? Or I just watched a Fish Called Wanda. Hilarious movie, hilarious. I
But
mean,
there's no messages in that. I
right,
wonder
right.
why. That was literally a Oscar-nominated comedy. Okay, so you grew up UCB. We were talking about it too, and you talked a little bit about it in the book. What was your experience? When did you get into UCB? How long were you in there?
So I started doing sketch and improv at NYU, and I didn't even know about the UCB theater, but all the kids in my sketch group knew about it. My sketch and improv group knew about
Right.
it. So I believe it was my senior year of college. We sort of made the leap of from performing just at like NYU and doing NYU shows to getting a spank slot at the UCB theater, and the opportunity to perform at the UCB theater for everybody in my troupe was like,
Right.
it's like almost that's the ultimate. Like, forget about
Right.
SNL. Like, this was SNL.
Right. Right.
And we were able to. We did a very tight show because we had a great director, AJ Morales, and we also were able to pack it because a lot of us were local to New York, either Long Island, Queens, and Staten Island. So we were able to pack it out, and we showed the UCB theater. Hey, not only are we young and funny, but we're also able to get people in the seats.
In the seats, right?
Yeah. So it was like 2003, 2004. That's where we started at the UCB theater, and looking back, I mean, it's like almost 20 years ago.
Mm.
It's insane, for one, that I'm 20 years older than I was. But then, just looking back and just seeing like, man, I really wish I had just spent more time there. I already spent a shitload of time there,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like, damn, I wish I had spent more time with that appreciation that there will one day, there will come a time where this is no longer what it is. This is no longer a theater. This is no longer this atmosphere, this community here. What's going on that stage is going to end one day. And holy shit, you are such a lucky kid to come up at the time, when this stuff was happening on that theater. And also to come up at a time in comedy where it's like, you got to earn your time. You got to earn your stage time. And this is for unpaid gigs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta earn it, and you're not even getting paid. So
No. In fact, you're usually paying more. I mean, even for this, for this dumb show of mine, I'm paying StreamYard a monthly. I'm paying my Libsyn, the hosting site. I'm paying YouTube. I'm paying all this shit. So Venmo me. But it's kind of partially for the love of the game, but also, I mean, a lot of motherfuckers in Arkansas probably do it for the love of the game. The fact that you got to be in New York at UCB had, Amy Poehler, all these like, heavy hitters in comedy. Even in 2005, I think she was already on SNL.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So like, and I remember seeing her in the UCB show where I first saw her. I think it was the late 90s or something. But like, with some just to be around that, I even listened to the documentary or the audiobook on Kids in the Hall, and just like hearing about the them being slogging through at I think it was a Victoria Theater in Toronto, and just like the electric atmosphere type of shit, I mean, you got to be a part of that. That's a big deal. It's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, and did you see the documentary, Kids in the Hall documentary, Comedy Punks?
No.
It's great. It's on Amazon. So I did like we watched the documentary, and then the new season that's on Amazon too, which you got to check out. Yeah.
Oh no, I did watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I said they're still the most dangerous motherfuckers in sketch comedy. Like, it's fucking great just watching them be insane.
Watching them be insane, and like similar to there's something about, and I feel this way about a lot of like music, because I like a lot of, fucking genres and shit, right? I feel like there's an intangible, what I call give a fuck. You know what I mean? That's why I listen to a lot of different, genres, but I listen to like the top 15, 20% of whatever so, whether it's hip hop or bluegrass or whatever, there's an intangible, somebody gave a fuck about what they were creating. You can tell that. Literally the skit that jumped to mind was Dave Foley sitting alone at a radio station, after the apocalypse, playing
I've got a new pair of
roller
skates.
skates.
Yeah.
And the look on his face, like it didn't need to be a message. It didn't need to speak truth to power. It was just the haunting. It never winked at it was just boom. Here's what we're going to make. Fuck you. I need that in my life, man.
Yeah. Mark McKinney, they have this fucking elaborate, like 10-minute suspense driven sketch for a shit joke. And it's like for a literal like turd in a toilet bowl shit joke. And you're and
they show murder, like it's like because now they're on Amazon, they could do whatever. It's like
and it's like watching the kids having been in a large group in college. I was with the Wicked Hammercats was our group, and then later with my duo Greg and Lou, and continuing to work with my longtime partner on stuff. It's like I know what it's like to be in the writer's room where even something like a shit joke is being treated like, no, we can go, no, we could be smarter about this. It's no. It's still going to be a shit joke, but no. I've seen that done before. We're gonna hit this shit joke from a different angle, and we got to play it real. Okay, this is like, just all that getting to see like these dudes who are like in their late 50s, early 60s, and knowing just how much fun that they had to have had. It's pretty, it's pretty great. I don't know if you want to check something out. Scott Thompson has he had a punk band that started.
Mouth Congress.
I saw Mouth Congress live in Philadelphia.
What? How long ago?
How many months ago was it? I forget how many months ago, but
does Bellini wear the towel or no?
No, different character. No, different character. So I drove to Philadelphia to see Mouth Congress live, and then I drove back home that night. So I put in like at least 4 hours of driving that day. And yeah, man, I mean, Scott is just, I mean, he's just a born performer. Like he's fucking amazing. So
I thought they came out with that video a couple years ago. I actually practiced it on guitar. I was thinking about doing a cover of it.
They have like
Tactile.
fur coat. Yeah, they have fur coat. Touch me. Yeah.
So fucking metal. Can we also say, by the way, because you're talking about your experience in the writer's room, I've seen, because I'm a fucking sketch comedy dork or whatever, the documentary of the behind the scenes of making with Bob and David, where they are, sitting there with a bunch of, Post-it notes and coming up with this and quiet for like 5 minutes while someone waits to throw out an answer. From an outsider's perspective, I've never been in a part of that. I would assume you need to be able to throw out dumb ideas that might stick and be the greatest comedy idea of all time, or might be complete dog shit. You need that freedom to be able to, let's throw this at the wall and not only see what sticks, but also see what inspires somebody else. Or if it's just going to be like, you need, as what's his face, as John Cleese said in his book, like you kind of need the freedom to be able to just loose and like, sometimes he said, comedy is the only, creation is the only job that you can have 8 hours put in and not create anything. You never hear of accountant's block. You never hear of bricklayer's block, but when you sit down, it could be 8 hours of like, come up with an idea, throw it out, come up with an idea. And same thing with the writer's room. And that's another thing that bothers me, because how is innovation going to happen if we know there's a growing list of topics we can't talk about and words we can't say?
Yeah.
That's gross to me.
No, totally. Yeah, I think, and going back to the UCB and the time when I came up there, there was, you know, you knew that you were going to bomb sometimes. You knew that you were going to fail. I mean, uh, they do. Sketch comedy was big at the UCB theater, but it was mainly an improv school. An improv school and also an improv theater. And I mean, what is improv but putting stuff out there that it's never been done before, never been seen,
Mm,
and seeing how it does in front of a crowd. So, there's a incredible amount of risk that goes into that, but the reward is so. I mean, when it works, I say it's like magic, and I think it's really important too. And I do wonder about young people coming up doing comedy. Um, and things are different now too. I mean, as far as like, different platforms, and, you have people who are doing stuff on TikTok. So that's a way to get,
mhm,
stuff out there. But then, they could run into what you've run into, which is getting dinged or kicked off it. So they're coming up against, uh, you know, algorithmic sensors, that, might be stifling some of the creativity. Oh, we can't do that because then we'll get kicked off of, off of this platform. But then there's outside of that, I think there's a lot of stuff of, a lot of examples of people coming up in comedy who might be afraid to try something or throw it out there because they don't want to offend, or they've been told that 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 topic might be offensive.
mm,
So I wonder, how much creativity that's stifling. And I remember someone I know who's a producer in showbiz. He was talking about how in writers' rooms, they're having like these sit downs with people in like kind of like the equivalent of like HR, talking about the rules of engagement in writers' rooms, and how you might be working with somebody, have a partner that you've been a writing partner with for 10 years, and you guys have a good relationship, and you rib each other, and there's inside jokes, and you say fucked up things to one another, which is normal and something that you would expect in a writer's room. But well, there's a chance that a third party might hear you and be offended and then report you. So, you know, be careful
right.
about what you're saying. And it's like, you know, creating something good is already hard enough, getting into the creative arts and trying to do that. I mean,
Right.
unless you're like, some kind of prodigy who, the shit just comes out of you and, you write it down. Um, so I can't imagine really working in that kind of environment. So.
And you talk about it in the book, but what do you feel like led to essentially the death of UCB?
I think,
Is it still around in some iteration, or is it?
yeah, it's around in some iteration. It's I know they have classes that I think a lot of the classes are online. They had a number of brick and mortar spots that have closed down, unfortunately. I don't know what the theater looks like, if there even is one. Um, but yeah, I think uh, there was. I don't know what led to it. I think they allowed a lot of kind of a corporate nature to creep in. So things like diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the UCB they're progressives.
Yeah.
Especially the founders, and a lot of the most of the people who were there and came up there are liberals, or to the left of liberals.
Right.
And so they made a lot of attempts to bring diversity to
Right.
in through scholarships and that sort of thing. And and as I talk about in the book, it's like improv is like a goofy white people thing,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that's okay. Like,
Mhm.
you're not going to find a lot of black people who like doing improv.
No.
um
But
so
but black people are 13.5% of the population and yet 73% of the NBA. Why is that? Maybe it's a cultural difference, and obviously we want equality of opportunity. But you talked about like, what are we going to go out into the Bronx and like outreach?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, look, man, look, LeBron, you're not going to be doing basketball anymore. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be getting up on stage and asking for a one-word suggestion, and then goofing around with goofing around with a bunch of kids who went to Vassar. Um, uh, so I think that was, that was an element of it. Over the years, I was seeing just a bunch of commentary saying that, the UCB theater and the Groundlings and Second City and all of them were these institutions of racism and systemic oppression and all that.
Right.
And I was just like, what the fuck are you guys what are you talking
Right.
about? It's an improv school.
Right.
Like, you had people coming out of the woodwork saying, yeah, I worked there, I performed there for 10 years, and I always felt like I was, left out or unheard, or there weren't enough people who looked like me. And it's
Right.
like, go make your own fucking theater, man. What
Right.
what the fuck are you talking
Right.
about?
And why didn't we hear that from Tim Meadows? You know what I mean? Why didn't we hear that from a ton of people? I mean, even listen, I cannot stand Tina Fey's politics. I know, I get it. Although she's been quite quiet the last few years. I think I smell you, Tina. I think I know you. Come to the dark side, girl. I know you don't know a lot of a lot of liberal, a lot of Latinos. Just come, baby. Me and Lou. It's all right to not vote a certain way. You can even go porcupine, although we haven't talked about that. That fucking mascot is the dumbest fucking mascot. I'm not saying the donkey or the elephant is better, but come on. But like Tina Fey as an example, why did I start talking about her? We were talking about why didn't she? Oh, even in her book, Bossy Pants, I fucking adore. In my personal opinion, and I've even caught shit from it from people, 30 Rock is the greatest television program of all fucking comedy television. I'm sorry, it's fucking incredible. The writing on that motherfucker, I don't care. Alec Baldwin could shoot 5 more PAs.
He's amazing on it. Yeah,
he's fucking incredible.
For me, a Werewolf Bar Mitzvah is like, forget about being funny. Like, that shit is brilliant.
Boys becoming men
becoming wolves. Werewolf Bar Mitzvah. Spooky.
I love it to death. Rabaluja. But here's the thing. And she even talked about in Bossy Pants how, like, it was a little bit of a boys club, and here's me and Amy Poehler sticking up for blah, blah, blah. But it was like, out of a whole book, it was like a couple of pages. Everything else was how hard it is to do comedy anyway. Everything else was how hard it is to be a fucking human anyway. The fulcrum between, it's the same thing I always go back to, like, with saying nigger, you know what I mean? Like, some people might get mad about it, but I've had black people, black friends of mine on my show thank me for saying it. So why should I listen to the offended ones over that black guy? Which one? Are offended people more right? And here's why I think part of the reason why that happened to UCB is because it's such a white liberal expanse, and a lot of those white liberals, sorry, don't know enough black people to know the breadth and width of how complicated them motherfuckers are, about how sometimes you get a Tim Meadows and sometimes you get a Ta-Nehisi Coates or whatever.
I mean, I remember being at the theater and in improv. I would hear it every now and then in improv scenes. The N word would be dropped by someone who was white,
right,
and it was for good reason. A crime was being committed. No, excuse me. No, it was. It was. It made sense in the scene, and it was sort of like when it came out, it was like, holy shit!
Right.
Not only is that word, an icky word, but it makes it. It's the perfect word for this situation. Mm-hmm. So it was never, just kind of, wantonly, thrown around. But yeah, with the, I have a chapter in the book called Ode to the UCB where, I got to look back and just see, like, man, how amazing it was. And, you don't realize, it's that, cliche. You don't realize something's gone until it's gone. You remember, realize how great it was before it's gone. But yeah, I think a lot of allies at the UCB or who came up, around the same time are put in a really tricky place because it's like, okay, so do you believe that you were a part of, systemic racism in this theater? And if you say no, well, then that means that you are contradicting the improvisers of color who have created this thing called Project Rethink, right? And who wants to be in that, who wants to be, on that side of it? Or if you say, yes, I do actually, looking back, this improv school and theater was, a pillar of systemic racism. It's like, and you were party to it, So I guess I put others in a very tricky situation, but I think overall, it's like the hate that that I saw, thrown at the UCB theater, the UCB four, and other artists who came up there, just completely unwarranted, and I think rather despicable. So
And again, everybody will go a few more minutes. Everybody go buy the book. But one of the things I really love, and I don't know which direction should we go, the Chris Rock challenge, or should we go the, or should we talk about Apu? Because you do a beautiful breakdown of both. But I think I think I would kind of want to talk about Apu,
Okay.
and mostly around the fact that, and by the way, that was the other thing I was thinking. So I'm a Havsy too, all right, and but I don't code switch as beautifully as you do. Okay, I just felt like every time it was like Latino, like it was just like that.
Every now and then I'm gonna put pernil in.
Right. My name is Lupe Perez. You know. But so, you grew up. Can you talk about your experience growing up you grew up in New York? Yeah, and growing up in a very racially diverse both background as well as upbringing.
Yeah, I grew up in Queens. I'm born in '82, so I grew up in the '80s and '90s. Uh, I grew up in Woodside, Queens. So I lived in the Boulevard Gardens, which was I kind of like Irish and Italian white kids.
Mm.
My dad is a wetback from Argentina, um, and I went to public school, PS 151, right across the street from the Woodside Project. So I went to school with all my friends were, black and Puerto Rican and Asian, and I literally grew up in the most diverse place, on the planet. So I have, firsthand experience with good and shitty people of all
Mhm.
races and creeds. Um, and also like growing up, and I'm sure you can appreciate this too. I, you hear quite a bit about like the lack of representation on television and in movies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, when did that happen? Because when I was a kid, like I watched Martin and In Living Color, and Eddie Murphy was all over the place, and I even watched Living Single. Like all of the sitcoms that I watched were all like black, like black sitcoms.
Right.
What was it? What was it? Apartment? No, not Apartment 227. Building 227 or something like that. It's like
I don't
all
know.
these sitcoms. Like I just remember growing up, and it's just like, I just seeing black and brown faces on TV.
Cosby, Fresh Prince.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And I have a friend of mine who's a little younger, and he was talking about how then there was like all these, this other like generation of shows like Sister, and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I can't say there was a lack of representation because there wasn't,
No.
because every time I put on my TV, that's what we were watching. That's what we felt.
Right.
That's what was normal.
Right.
So that's kind of, I guess, the background on that front.
Right. And as far as the representation goes, I feel like it's maybe a similar thing because I like getting into the psychology of these motherfuckers because I feel like you kind of gotta, I feel like you kind of gotta know your enemy.
Mm.
And I know on paper they say it's because they care a lot, but I've met a lot of these people and they don't seem like they're very caring. They don't seem like they have an abundance of love or connection in their lives. I feel like it's a similar symptom to the people who, who did possibly, what is it, Generation Rethink, or, Project Rethink or whatever,
Right.
where it's just like, it's hard to get into TV. It's hard to get into movies. It's hard to get into whatever. It's hard to get into on stage. It's a sacrifice. It's painful. You get, it's hell, but it's worth it because you love what you do. But if someone dangled in front of me, hey, we're going to give you this, or if the culture showed me, hey, we're going to give you a leg up, one of those Mario Kart stars, so it'll turn you rainbow, and all you got to do is say everybody who isn't half Puerto Rican, half German is the devil. Like if I was a piece of shit, yeah, I'd go like, yeah, everybody who's not Puerto Rican is a piece of shit. Like, but I was raised differently than that, and I have
Yeah.
different experience, and I've been both the bully and bullying and been bullied before. So I kind of acutely know that. Something Scott Thompson said, like, about the woke shit, is that, like, yeah, in the 80s, dudes would get up on stage after him and like wipe off the mic. Oh, someone had AIDS. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's bullying. But then, and not even in a joking way, because they know him, they were just being pieces of shit trying to get a cheap laugh. But he said he's very acutely aware of bullying and how woke people are now bullying, and how white straight guys. Oh, your camera's off.
Oh, I'll get it back. There.
I don't know what's happening.
I don't know.
You just look like a white dot.
That's who I've been this whole time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's see. I'll fix this. Keep going.
Okay. But just how like, Scott Thompson, this literally, not hyperbolically, boundary breaking motherfucker in the late 80s, early 90s, who came out openly gay when it was not the most, but it's, not just culturally unpopular, but also everyone was shit terrified of AIDS, and survived that. And yet he's like looking at what woke is doing to white men now, and he's like, yeah, I'm acutely aware of bullying and I hate that shit and I want to fight it everywhere I can. So I feel like the fulcrum between, I feel like I don't remember the dude's name, but I just wanted to string a bunch of dibble dabble together to say, what was that? You're back.
There.
I feel like the Indian motherfucker who made the problem with Apu is a bullying piece of shit. I'm sorry, but
Hari Kondabolu.
He's a bullying piece of shit. And when you get that bit between your teeth, and you not only get to bully people, but you're a hero for doing it, delicious.
Yeah, I don't know how many of your viewers watched The Problem with Apu, which was a like an hour-long documentary about an adult man's problem with a cartoon. But yeah, I have a chapter in my book, Apu Problems, where I talk about that documentary, and then also what it sort of means, because Hank Azaria, who voices Apu, ended up apologizing profusely for having spent however many decades giving a very stereotypical Indian accent to this character. And there are just some things that I noticed was, I mean, for one, my dad has a very thick accent. He's from like I said, he's from Argentina, and I get a kick out of his accent, especially when people try to do it. It's a fucking funny accent. It could be tough to understand him if you've met him once or even a dozen times.
Right.
Like I speak I'm bilingual in that I speak English and I speak my dad's version of English.
Right.
So I found like I had quite a bit in common with this guy Hari. Both of his parents are immigrants. We both grew up in Queens, and all that. And I felt like there was quite a bit from his documentary that was that was missing, which had to do with the real positive aspects of Apu as a character on The Simpsons, and how when you compare him to like a lot of the other characters on The Simpsons, he's really well drawn. Like he's a very very well drawn character. He's much more than what his accent is. And uh, on the accent itself, I mean, something that I noticed, which was pretty fucking, I thought was pretty amazing, was in the in the documentary. Hari is talking about how nobody sounds like a poo. Like no Indian person sounds like a poo. Like this is such a stereotypical accent and nobody sounds like it. Then this dude fucking cuts to his parents in their living room and they start speaking. And I'm like, homie, they sound like a poo. Holy shit. It's like, you fucking kidding me, dude?
Right.
Are you fucking kidding? That would be like me saying, like, oh, dude, nobody sounds like, the Dos Equis guy, most interesting man in the world. Like nobody sounds like that. And then you hear my dad speaking, like, oh, except for that one fucking spick. He sounds like him.
Right.
So I sort of took I don't know, I thought the Apu situation is sort of like emblematic of kind of the times that we're living in, where it's like here you got an incredibly successful show with a beloved character, and then all you need is just this one fucking prick to find this angle, to tear down what took so long to create and how much great stuff went into it, and then all the just the pathetic collateral damage. Hank Azaria going on and apologizing. Not only does he wants to apologize to every Indian person in the world for doing this accent. I'm like, well, after you finish apologizing to them, some of those motherfuckers have to apologize for sounding like a poo, because it's only fair. They're living the accent. So
Right. And they also need to apologize to all Mexican bee costume wearers.
That's right. That's right, man. Bumblebee man.
And I'll we'll start wrapping up, but I also want to throw in, like, I mean, part of the other reason I think that motherfucker is a bully is that, I mean, I was bullied as a kid, right? I was overweight, and at points of my life I wanted to kill myself because of my fat.
Oof.
Explain to me how that's worse, or how that's not as bad as someone saying, "Ooh, and making fun of you as a kid, Hari. Explain to me how your bullying was worse. Like, I'm not, like, at points of my life, like I said, that wasn't an actual problem that I had, and it was fucking, it sucked ass. But this is a shit sometimes. Bullying will happen. And I'm not going online and going, hey, don't call me, don't do this, me, because the internal work had to happen, not the external work. It's a lot easier to buy a pair of fucking slippers than it is to carpet the world. And that's why I'm like, I don't like that shit. Because it's the same thing with Rethink, or Project Rethink. It's just like, I hope it's worth your fucking 30 pieces of silver, you piece of goddamn shit. You ruined comedy. You ruined Hari, whatever. And you pointed out beautifully, no one's watched Simpsons in a long time, and yet it's still on the air. But that's a beloved character that brought a lot of people joy over the years, and yet it's culturally, at least, gone. And yet Hari is not famous. And whoever Project Rethink is probably isn't doing that great either. And so I hope it was worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely easier to tear something down than to build it up. With so many of these things, like, as far as I know, I don't think Hari has an animated show where, he's written all these new, really interesting Indian characters who, happen to work, more respectful gigs than a convenience store. Or, as far as Project Rethink goes, I don't know if they ever offered to buy the UCB theater,
Right.
like, imagine, like, that would be some respect. I would give definitely respect to people who are like, look, we see a problem here. We think we can do better. Sign on the dotted line. Here we have the capital. We're going to make this happen. Or, you know what? We're going to fucking, you guys have a theater in Midtown now. All right, we're going to go up to Harlem, and we're going to make, the premier, improv theater in Harlem, and we're going to kick ass. We're going to appeal to a new audience.
Right.
And one of the things about where we're living now and the times that we're living that makes me so helpful is that you can do that. You have the ability to uh, create your own audience, create your own shows, and you know, go out there and show your work, show how good you are. That's one of the chapters that I have. And you're going to see a lot of people who can't hack it. And they can't hack it on their own. So what do they have to do? Well, maybe I could tear down an institution that for decades has, created some of the best, comedians out there, and some of the best comedy out there.
Right. And I know you got to go. I got to leave you alone, but I just will also put one shout out, to bullies are never going to stop doing what they're doing. People aren't going to, it doesn't look like you cannot reason or be rational with someone who is childish and irrational. I think and maybe it was too early, but I think he probably would have done the same thing. Where it stops is with the Hank Azarias. Where it stops is with some going at UCB, instead of going, oh, you want to put my hand behind my back? Sure, I'll put my hand behind my back. Like, is going, no. And I know you're going to call me every name in the book, but no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely takes, people to stand up and exactly say, nope, you're not, there's a line here. You're not crossing it. And I'm not crossing it. So,
right. And regardless of the political stuff, what we're fighting for, as far as why I wanted to have you on, not just for your wonderful book, but is comedy. Comedy is what makes this whole thing, for me anyway. Some people it's music only, some people it's this, some people it's that. For me, it's like, that's what makes this whole fight, this self-important thing that I'm doing, so worth it, because on the other side of it is I'm protecting what brought me so much joy, connection, love, peace, humor over the years. And, and that's what I appreciate also, to tie it in very inelegantly about your fucking book. You know what I mean? Is that shit's funny as fuck. And, your sketches have been funny as fuck. And I appreciate your work. I hate to say it, but I appreciate your work in the fight, so thank you.
Thank you, Peter. This is I can't believe it's been so long since I've talked to you, but thanks for having me on, man. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And everybody go by, show it please one more time. That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, on the Death and Rebirth of Comedy by Lou Perez. And follow him at the Lou Perez. Anything else to plug, sir?
If you guys want to give me money, go to thelouperez.locals.com. So thank you.
Fantastic. Everybody, wherever you're listening, make sure you subscribe, share this, rate it, review it. Find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano and on Twitter at Rule62Peter. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording now. Bye, everybody.